can go buy one. It's up to you. But my replacement sponge came in for my wet palette today, so I've got that all ready to go. And I've got a couple other new things. I got a new camera, so I might use the old camera as my wet palette cam. We'll see. We'll do all kinds of things. But today is more about the class and teaching you how to do some shading and highlighting on your model to get it a little bit more, popping on the table. So we're going to do that. So last week we learned about color theory. This week we'll learn about value theory. And if you don't know how to draw three-dimensional objects, then I'll give you two simple three-dimensional objects that you can impress your son and daughter with, or you can impress your parents, depending on who's watching. Yeah, so I'm going to be just using models that you've seen for the past 2 weeks. Maybe you have your own model that you want to try to paint with. If you go to my Discord, which is !Discord in the chat, there's a thing there called the University, and it goes through all the classes that we're doing. So we're on week 3, which is, I think in there it's gmp103, and I've given a little bit of layering tips on how to paint certain colors. So we'll go in and we'll take care of how to shade that in, and I'm going to teach you how to use washes. Washes can be used to soften your layerings or be your shade, depending on how you want to use it. So we'll take care of that stuff today as well. So there's a lot of information today. I'm just going to go through. We're going to look at some bone colors. We're going to look at some flesh colors. We're going to look at some metal. And at the end of the video, hopefully we can get there, I'll show you. I learned, this is so cool, by the way. So there's a lot of dry brushing stuff in the first week. Somebody just goes through and he dry brushes models. Well, I found somewhere on YouTube how you can shade using washes. You can create zombie flesh. So hopefully we can get there and see how that works out. He had a cool zombie though, so I might not be able to do it. We'll see if I can rectify it. But I do have a new camera, so I can get more close-ups. So you'll see I won't be hitting the camera with my little eyes magnifiers, and I'm not going to be focusing. I got the autofocus on. So please, if the autofocus is too disruptive, then let me know, and I will make sure that I take it off, and then we can go from there. All right. So with all of that, I know we want to get to painting, but I do have a few more announcements that I want to get through first, and that is, one, my normal nights of streaming is Friday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, but I will not be streaming tomorrow evening. So my next Friday stream will be next Friday the 25th, where we'll be giving away a bunch of stuff that I found in my basement, in my stash. Not my basement stuff, but my hobby stuff that I have in the basement. So there's a lot of cool things that I'm just going to kind of give away. And you only have to be here. That's it. That's the only qualifier. You just have to be in the channel as a follower to say thank you for getting me to affiliate. June has been my official month of being affiliate, and I got the channel points going, the channel redeems. Speaking about the redeems, I turned all of them off like we do every Thursday for the class. They'll come back on Friday, but I did leave the highlight message on there in case you want to ask me a question. I can actually see it. The second announcement is all across Twitch. There's a bunch of streamers that is doing something for the Pride for June, which is Pride Month. And so if you do !Trevor Project, that's the name of the project. There's about 50 or 60 streamers that are participating that are accepting donations for this this fundraising, and it all benefits the Trevor Project for the LGBTQ community. I think there's an I and an A in there. I don't remember. but LGBTQ plus community. And if you go to one of the links, it gives you all of the participating streamers that are accepting donations for that fundraiser. So you can pick your favorite streamer, find out when they're streaming. There's a schedule. You can find out when they're streaming and then donate directly to them. Or if you want to donate directly now, I just kind of hijack somebody's link, and she's very, very into this project, and she's painting for it. She's streaming for it. So if you just want to donate directly and not wait for anybody, then you can use the link. It is a Tiltify link, and I know people were having problems with PayPal for it. So you may want to wait until your streamer is streaming. So that is the second announcement. I am not accepting donations, but I am painting a model for the Trevor project, and it's all about it's Marines on Parade, or there's art Marines on Parade, I think is what it is, but everybody's painting in a different flag color for the LGBT community. So you can elect to paint and send pictures in. You can I know some people are putting them on eBay, raising money that way. So it's cool. It's a cool fundraiser and a project. So I'm just trying to support wherever I can. But I haven't set anything up for donations. So please check that out. And if you are willing to donate, find your favorite streamer or use the link of the one that I have. So I'm trying to do all like the Friday, Thursday thing before we get to the class, because I think once we get into this class, you're just gonna be a pro at painting miniatures. But I think that's all of the announcements. So let's get ready and let's start painting. Hey, Erk Dad, how are you doing, buddy? Thanks for stopping in. Thanks for that lurk. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is something called value theory, and where I'm going to teach you guys how to draw a three-dimensional object if you don't already know, and I'm going to show you what value is. And the first, we're going to just do something very easy, and that is we're going to draw a square, and I have to make sure that I'm doing this on camera. So I don't have the very straight lines. I always use a straight edge to do it. But if you draw a square, and then you draw a square in the corner, all right, so you have that, and then you extend that square up over here. So now you got two squares, and you just connect all of these points. You've now drawn your first three-dimensional cube. It's like a die. Hey, Cthulhu, how's it going, buddy? Thanks for stopping in. Early interruptions. Thanks for doing your thing, my man. No worries, Pi. You guys just do your thing. Hey, Talon, what's going on? So the value is, if I erase this top line, just to show you, well, if I erase all these individual lines. So let's say that I have light coming from this direction. So chances are I'm going to get light on the top of the cube. This will all be in shade. And this may get a little bit of light, so I'll just do it a little bit lighter. And this is what value theory is. It's knowing where the darker colors are and where the lighter colors are. So here's the dark. Here's the mid-tone. And here's the light. And so when we paint miniatures, our miniature is a three-dimensional model. Hey, Effie, how are you? Thanks for stopping in. Our model is 3 dimensions, so that's what these are here. These are all dimensions. We have the light color, we have the mid-tone color, and we have the dark color. And we usually call the dark color the shade. We call the light color the highlight. And the midtone is just the color we're looking for. So if you're doing blue, right, if you're doing a blue color, then you're going to want a darker blue as the shade and a lighter blue as the highlight. If you're doing red, same thing. Red, darker red, pink, or lighter red, and so forth and so on. So that is sort of the value that we're looking for. So we get the 3. It is a new haircut. Yes. Yes, I figured it's time. 6 months of streaming, I became affiliate. I should probably look a little bit better on camera than I have been. So, and now I have a reminder every 3 months to go get one. Thanks. So this is where I get the color of 3 from. So this is my 3 color system. It's not really mine, but I'm just stealing it. Whoops. 3 color system. And so when I say it's a 3 color system, anything you want to put on the model should have 3 colors to it. It should have a shade, should have a midtone, and it should have a highlight. Now, do you have to wash the shade in? Do you have to always be precise? The answer is no. You can, the smaller the area, you can just layer it. You can just paint it dark, then paint some of it over with the color you want, and then highlight it after, which I'll show you when we get into miniatures. This is a new camera. It is a new camera. This, see, watch, I'll show you. So here's my little guy that it will focus on, but look how close this gets in. Super close. Look at this. Oh my goodness, it's even going farther and farther. Isn't that cool? This is the 4K Brio. I got it just because I wanted to show you guys a lot of stuff. And since we're getting into detail stuff next week, and we're getting into shading and things like that, I wanted to be able to do that for you. So yes, it is a new camera. So here's the 3 color system, and that's what we're gonna apply to the models over and over and over. And so we're gonna show you the flesh, use dark flesh, light flesh, and washes. So there's that. Now I said I would show you another 3-dimensional. So if you draw a circle like this, see that? All you gotta do is put a little smile somewhere on the circle, and now it's 3-dimensional. There's this, and then you can just, like, let's say that the light is right here. The thing with a ball, though, is that the highlight is really just a circle, and then it kind of spirals out here. So you have the bright spot here in the as a circle somewhere, and then all of this kind of gets shaded, and then just below the hemisphere is all dark. And that's how you can kind of make the 3-dimensional. And we'll see this a lot when we start doing our gemstones next week. Okay. But this is your value theory. This is just basic value theory. And those artists out there, those sketch artists and those digital artists, you guys know, right? You guys know the value theory because I've seen your work. So our miniatures are no different than that. We just have to realize that we have 3 dimensions on the model, and we don't want it to look flat. So if your miniatures are looking flat, it just either needs more shade or more highlight. All right, so I'm just moving some miniatures around here. So remember, we did all kinds of dry brushing. Look, we dry brushed the wolf first week. We dry brushed that skeleton. And I want you to remember this skeleton because we'll show you a different way of doing the bone color. And remember, so these are all the dry brushing stuff we did. And then our base colors, we're doing a lot of stuff with this guy, a lot of stuff with this guy, and a lot of stuff with this guy. So we're just going to continue on with these things. And we're going to show you how to shade, and we're going to show you how to do washes. So for today's lesson, I didn't want to go extensive, but I'll show you at the end different extensive stuff. But we're going to use a black wash and a brown wash. And I distinguish between these washes by, if it's a warm color, I'm going to use the brown wash. And if it's a cool color, I'm going to use a black wash. What makes it warm? Well, think of the spectrum Warigi Biv. Think of the rainbow. The first three colors, red, orange, yellow, those are warm colors. And if you look at the back three, which is technically blue and purple, you know, there's indigo and then there's violet. So if you have the blue and the purple, those are cool colors, so they'll get the black wash. And then you have this middle color, green, that could either be cool or it could be warm, depending on how much yellow or blue is in the green. So that's how you determine whether to use a black wash or a blue wash or a brown wash. Now there are other washes, there are other shades. You don't have to use a black or a brown shade, and we'll do that as well. We'll show you those colors. I mean, there's different colors, so you can layer your miniature. All right. So let's get painting here, because that's what you want. So remember last week I gave you the tip that we don't paint white. We always paint the brightest gray, and then we'll use white to highlight. And so I did that. So technically I was already highlighting, but I was just painting white over my gray because we were doing the base colors, and you can do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you that because I did that gray and I built the white up, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wash this black. But we also did these metal pieces on his chest, and I'm going to also wash those black. So it's going to be a shade. Remember, we base coated this guy black, and then we dry brushed the metal on. I could have painted all the metal on. So black is my shade color for this silver. So that's kind of where I want to go with this. I want to make this right here the shade color black. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make his head silver. Oh, and I completely forgot. I was supposed to show you guys how to make a wet palette. So I'm going to show you that now. But the first thing I have to do, whoops, that's what happens when you click buttons. All right, I need to come over here. I need to configure the video, and I need to come over here. We're gonna zoom out just a little bit. There we go. I think I remember where I was, so we'll get it all. Oh, that didn't take. Hold on. We're all professionals here. All right, so right there is where we want it. And now we'll apply it. There we go. Okay, so to make a wet palette, you need a sponge. There's a sponge. Now, I took an old scrubby brush for dishes. You know, they got the nylon netting around it, and the nylon netting was all ripped, and I said, oh, I can use that sponge. So this sponge is a little thick, but we could still get it to be used. And then I got some kind of plastic that can hold water, because you have to dump water into this, and you gotta get the sponge wet. And then at the grocery store, now I haven't tested out tracing paper, but you might be able to use tracing paper. But I went to the store and I got some parchment baking sheets. And all I'm gonna do is take water. Actually, I think I have water down here. And take water, and I'm gonna soak the sponge, so the sponge is nice and wet. And soak up all that water. So I'm gonna need more water, I think. And you want to fill the sponge so it can't take any more water. And you'll know when it can't take any more water because it will drip. See, I don't know if you can see it dripping. See how it's dripping? So let's just get it so it doesn't drip anymore. Okay. I don't know if you can see that. All right. So then I'll just put all this water in my paint. Then I took the pleasure of cutting this already so it's to size, but you're going to put parchment paper on the top. That's where your paint's going to go. But you want to wet the parchment paper on both sides, because if you only do it on one side, you're going to start seeing it to curl. So I'm just going to stick that in my water. All of my paint water is clean, by the way. I cleaned it just for you guys. And then I'm just going to stick it on there. Now, this is just a makeshift paint wet palette. Normally, I would have something that would sit in where it would hold this parchment paper, but it was just something cheap that I could do. And now I can just put paint on here. So I take this green and put green on there. And what this does, what the wet palette does, is it'll keep your paint moist and not dry out so fast. Like the parchment paper, I like the parchment paper because it stays wet from the sponge, and therefore your paint will stay wet and it'll last a lot longer. As we found out last week when everything was drying out on me. I'm doing very well, Cthulhu. Thank you for asking. Sorry, I look up at chat every now and then just to see what's going on. Oh, one of the announcements I forgot to say at the start is that I'm not rating during the class. So normally I raid all the time to people, but during these classes I don't raid, and I don't have people raid into me because it kind of is disruptive. So at the end of class, you guys are free to roam anywhere you would like. But normally when I'm just doing painting streams and we're just hanging out, I will always raid. So there's your wet palette. That's all you have to do. You can go buy one. I think they're probably $20. At least out here they are. Maybe you can get one for 15. And it has the same thing. But here's what I recommend with wet palettes. Use thin paper. Use a parchment sheet, or use this, like very thin paper, like tracing paper. Like I said, I haven't technically tested that out. You don't want wax paper, and you don't want the paper that comes with the wet palette, because those papers are too thick and they're meant for more of acrylic painting for canvas rather than they are for mini painting. Mini painting is very thin and it absorbs into that paper before it reaches the sponge. So this paper here will stay wet. It's supposed to stay wet with the sponge. So just a little tip. Don't use paper that comes in your wet palette, and don't use wax paper, because wax paper repels water, doesn't absorb it. Might be good for your acrylics, your mini paints, but then it'll start to dry out. So doesn't hold up once it's saturated. Got it. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. So parchment paper it is, unless there's a different paper out there that somebody plays with. That is the wet palette. So let's move these guys. So hopefully, and then eventually, now that I have a new cam, I might make my old cam the wet palette cam, so you can see what's going on. But all right, so let's get back to my Zoom here so we can start painting miniatures, because that's what this class is all about. But I also want to give you all the tools necessary to be to have you think that you're successful at painting miniatures, which I know you will be because you guys are amazing. There we go. Okay. All right, let's get this guy over here. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you how to use a wash. And I'm going to base coat. So I need to get my silver. So I'm going to show you two different ways of doing silver. So remember, I did this silver with just a generic light silver. So I'm going to start with a darker silver. I think, was this the one I used? I used to have all my paints here. Oh no, I know where it is. It's this silver here. That's dark. So where's my other silver? So many paints. Okay. So I'm just going to throw some silver on the my wet palette here. And I'll show you what the shade does, and I'll show you what the... All right. So let's clean that up. Ooh, almost got it all over. I went and cleaned all my brushes last night for you guys. Okay. All right. So now I have to get my magnifiers on. Sorry, folks. Old guy here. Needs the magnifiers. Honestly, if you make your own wet palette, you can just order packs. Yeah, you can. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can just order the paper. Well, I also ordered just the sponge because I need a new sponge for mine. So you can order this stuff. You can get what you need. I have a bigger one, but some people just want stuff around the house that they can use. So that's why I found all this stuff around the house and figured I'll just show them how to do that. But yes, you can order special stuff like that. All right, so I'm just gonna throw in dark silver on here. This has already been primed gray. It's not a gray model. I did prime it. And remember, with the base colors, it's a small enough area where I don't want to hit the flesh. So you just have to do it slow enough. Just use the tip of that brush. And I know I'm using my mixing brush. I probably should use a better brush. I should probably show you what I've been teaching you. So let me rinse that off. That's just my mixing brush. I shouldn't be painting with that. But it's got a tip, so I could paint with it if I wanted to. Where is my brush that I was painting with last week? There it is. Okay, so we'll use this brush. Again, remember from last week, we're not putting, I don't know if you can see that, we're not putting a lot of paint on, we're just using the tip. So you want to just go a third of the way on the brush. You don't want to use half of your brush. The tip is what's going to paint the model, not the belly of the brush. So you just kind of use it like a pencil or a pen. You don't paint with the side of the pen, you paint with the tip, or draw with the side of the pen. You can shade with the side of the pen, but I think if you're drawing or you're writing, use the tip. So that's all I'm doing here is I'm just using the tip and just trying to stay, because that paint is eventually going to go into the belly, and that's how it holds all that paint. So I'm just hoping that you guys are seeing that. I may have to tone this down. So this is my first night with this camera. I haven't streamed with this camera at all, so I have no idea how it looks or how it's focusing. So I may have to just kind of slow myself down if it gets obnoxious, or I just take the autofocus off. Hopefully my sound is better too. So there we go. So we just controlled. So that's all, believe it or not, that is dark silver. So I must use dark silver last time too. Now I'm going to do this two different ways. I'm going to highlight. I'm going to do a, excuse me, not highlight. I'm going to do a color blocking up here with a lighter silver. But then I'm going to wash everything with a black wash. Or shade everything with a black wash. So, and then I'll highlight these individual guys later. So I'm going to highlight up here first, and I'm going to highlight down here later. And that'll show you the different ways you can use the wash. I can either soften the layer up here with the wash, or I can shade with it and then highlight after. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm not really worried about light right now, because this technique, I just want to show you that you can highlight, and then what happens with that shading. So I'm just going to do the top of his head, all this bright color. Okay. So we just did that, and then I'm going to hit these edges right here. And we hit this edge right down here. All right. Now, I'm kind of cheating, because this black wash is going to serve as two purposes. It's going to help me with my white, and it's going to help me with my silver. So let me just show you the difference. So this is what a wash looks like. I haven't done anything. I've just taken it out of this pot. And so the wash is very high pigmented. There's a lot of black in here, but look at, you can't, it's so thin. So you could do this with a black paint, but you're going to keep diluting the color. So there's a lot more black pigment in here than there is in paint. And if I keep painting with this wash, it'll eventually turn black. So you can get black paint, and you can thin it quite a bit. But just know that you're diluting pigment as much as you're diluting the paint. And if it's a smaller rig, that you can just cut down the red grass sheets, or you just get a roll of Reynolds parchment. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I went to the local store to get parchment paper. But yeah, you can cut down it, and to size it. And that's the thing, you want to size it, because already because it's so hot in here. Already, here is my wet palette. It has been drying because it's been out, and look, it's curling off of the sponge. So you don't want to have any air whatsoever get in between it and the sponge. So just know that you're gonna you might want to make this a little bit bigger, so that you can make sure that nothing, because when you look at this wet palette, and I have to carefully, because I have stuff on it, but this wet palette here has no air bubbles in it, and it's inside the wet palette. I'm just moving it around because I'm zoomed in way close, and there's my paint there. All right. So all I've done is taken it out of here. I can thin this if I want, but I think for today's purposes, I'm not going to do that. And so All I'm going to do with a flush of motion is just paint over the areas. So here I'm painting over the silver, and this is just a quick way of shading in all of those recessed areas. And I can do it up here. And I'm using a wash brush. So this is a much larger brush, but you want to use the size of a brush that is not going to, like, I don't want to wash this entire miniature black because he's got flesh on it. And I think I'm going to use a brown wash for that. But for this, I'm just trying to stay as controlled as I can. And that is, and so now you can start seeing all of the detail in that miniature. See, even right, let's see. There you go. Even right there, you can see. Maybe you'll see it more on the back. So all I'm doing is just, right now I'm just using it from the pot. I'm not diluting it. I'm not making it, I'm not making it light. I'm just using it straight from the pot and doing all of the metal. So, come on, you can do it. You can do it. There it is. So you can see, you can start to see, and as this dries, now the problem here, instead of layering, is that you have to wait for this to dry. So I'm going to do the gray, or excuse me, I'm going to do the bottom here. And you're going to start to see that the gray gets darker, and you'll start to see more of the white highlight, or more of the white layer start to pop. And you also want to watch for any pooling. You don't want to have this stuff pool on you. So if it does pool, like let's say I didn't want all of that at the bottom, which is pretty good, by the way, I would just rinse off the brush, dry it on the hand a little bit, and then I can just soak up where I don't want it to be. So see, if I just touch it, it soaks it right up, and then it's no longer there. Maybe you don't want a black shade. Maybe you just want to get the gray darker. So you just kind of wash it off, dry, and now it'll soak up. I'll do that again so you can see. So I'm just going to dip. Again, I'm using a large brush to do this. And it's very hard to use a third, so there's a lot in that belly. And so I'll just kind of do this on his tunic. Oh, I don't think I did any. Oh, well, that's good. We'll do that too. So maybe over here, you want to wash it before you put the white on. So I don't think I put any white on the back last week. That's good. I had the foresight to not finish my white. Look at that. And so that's all the wash does. The wash is very thin. I could do this with a black if I wanted to. I could thin out my black, and I could do the same thing. My image just have higher pigment content. Yeah, it depends on the paint. You know, you would have to research a bunch of paint to find out who has strong pigments and who has several pigments in their paints. But yeah, I mean, if it's a single color paint, then diluting it, you'll still get the wash effect. But sometimes, like an orange or a blue will have different pigments in it to get the, like a sea blue versus a sky blue versus a royal blue or electric blue. So here's the black. Now notice that the silver we consider cool color, white we consider a cool color, and so therefore I use the black wash. Now see, if you look over here, it's pulling on me, so I just kind of make sure that I dry my brush, and then if I just touch it, it magically goes away. So that's how you can stop some pooling with the washes. So that's the trick with the washes. Just make sure it doesn't pool. All right. go back to this guy. Remember this guy? We made a flesh color. We tried to make a flesh color by mixing. And then we got the bone color here. So here's a miniature that I'm just going to do the whole thing brown. Because the flesh is sort of a warm color because it's got a little red pigment to it. It's got some green that we tried putting in for some darker areas. And then this bone color is sort of like a yellowy warm color. So we're just going to go ahead and throw a brown wash all over that. And watch how everything ties in. So again, still using just using a big brush, and I'm just going to kind of go over. And now you get to start to see that this wash, now he's got fingers. And we can get into these bone colors. And what this really does is it kind of tones down a lot of bright colors. So if you go too much with your bright color, you can tone it down by just using a brown wash. You can thin down a brown paint and do it, but again, a wash or an ink or a paint with one pigment is probably going to be a better wash for you or a shade for you than if you try to thin down this wash color or thin down a paint that doesn't have a lot of pigment to it. All right. So, and the reason I'm doing this, I'm trying to show you all of these washes because they are going to need time to dry. So I'm just going to go and rifle through a bunch of ways to use a wash. I'll also show you how you can mask in a layer or soften a layer down. So there we go. And it's not really picking up, but you can start to see a lot more of the shading details going on in the miniature. Let's see if I can. My camera might be too bright. Let's see if I can bring that down just a bit. It's here. Let's see. So this stream is also a teaching moment for me because I have to figure out the correct let's see if that works. That show. Yeah, that shows better. Okay. Cool. So that's what that looks like. And then again, because it's a wash, because you're thinning the paint, you got to watch for pooling. So maybe there's too much pooling on this hand, so I dry this off, make sure it's dry. Just touch it, and it kind of goes away. Any pooling back here, this all looks good. There we go. It likes to pull on the bottom, so I'll just get some of these feet. Okay. So he'll get much darker as he dries. So I'm going to put him over here, put him over here. All right. All right, so here's our little dwarf. So the dwarf has a little bit of flesh on him. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use a lighter flesh. So I think we just started with a darker flesh last week on him. So I'm going to just layer in a brighter flesh. So because the flesh on him, the flesh areas are smaller, I'm just go to my smaller brush. So my smaller brush is right here. So I'm going to use this brush, and I'm just going to block in where I want the highlights. So maybe on his fingers here. Oops. Then we got a little bit of arm down here. So all I'm doing is base coloring on them right now. I'm not really doing any kind of technique that we learned today. This is all last week. So I'm leaving that darker color as the shade color, and I'm using this as my highlight color. So you don't want to paint everything. You want to leave anything in those recesses for that shade color. Ah. This elbow. So there's that. And then we got some fingers here. His little big fingers. And then I'll get his hand and his other arm. Make sure that I'm on camera. I'm hoping that this camera will keep me on target. Okay. And then we got a little bit underneath here. Then we got some on his face. So let's get his face. Do his nose, do his cheek over here, the other cheek over here. All right. So there's our dwarf. Oh no. I have gone too bright on my flesh. That could be a valid concern that you might have. Maybe you think that you didn't mix well enough, or you want more definition, or you want to tone down that flesh. Maybe you want more of a dirtier flesh. Well, there's no concern here. If you go too bright, we can always do a glaze, or we can always do a wash to bring it back down to where we want it. So in this case, because it's flesh, we'll go back to the brown wash and tone it down. So we've tried to highlight first. It's sort of the same way we did the metal on the Archer. If you think it's too bright, we can tone it down with just a wash. So I'll just use this wash. And hopefully it'll be dry enough where it's not gonna mix with the wash. And then we'll have to let it dry. But see, now it's not so bright. It's not so flat. It's not, you're just kind of tinting that highlight down a bit, and then we'll go back in and we can highlight down the road. So this is a way of softening out those block colors, those layers that we have in there. Maybe you cover over detail that you didn't want to cover over. So, and you need to know where that goes again. So you just kind of throw that in there. So there you go. That's the shade. So again, I'm using the wash as one of my colors. It's my shade color. Whether it's going to be black or brown, I still have 3 colors. I have that dark flesh, I have that light flesh, and then I have that brown. I could go back over and do the light flesh again, and that would be the next value up. Okay. Let's see, where do I want to go from here? Let's put you over there. And you know what we're going to do now? We're going to take... No, I think we'll stay with this guy. Okay. So here's one that we started with dark purple, and we went to a lighter purple. And then we have this this sort of dark bone color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ivory or my bone, and I'm going to actually block paint onto his hands and his arms and his face. That's what I'm going to do. So this is what we did last week. A lot of what we're doing today is from last week, but there's a reason for that. So I'm just going to take this here, and I'm just going to paint in the fingers here. Very, very slow, very controlled. And this is another way that you can do bone. Actually, maybe I should just do it this way. Nah, we have our dark color, so I want to do this. Whoops. Oh well. I have too much paint on my brush, as you can tell. I'm a very bad teacher if I can't follow my own rules. But I can start to see a little bit more of this definition here. All right, so maybe that's too small a brush. Let's try this medium brush. Let's try this medium brush. This is a better medium brush, I think. Again, just a third of the bristles need to be painted or have paint on them, and it will do the trick. Ah. I think I might have to thin this out just a little bit. Give me 1 sec here. Should be using the wet palette instead of using the pot. I think my brushes are a little too dry, so I just have to moisten them up. All right. There we go. Let's try this and see if this works. There we go. That's a much better consistency. So I'm just doing this, and I'm going to do the same thing I did on the dwarf. I'm using a very extreme highlight on this dark to color block, and then I'll go in with a wash. Just giving him some bony hands. Hand bone. Get all these little bone fragments in his hand. I'm just stabbing, getting the color blocking in there. What is this alert? Can you get rid of this alert? I don't want that alert. There we go. Come on. Come on. Wonder why it's not focusing now. Way to go, big camera. So that's all I'm doing is I'm just getting the color blocking in there. It could be because I lowered the light. Maybe that's why it's not picking up the focus. All right, let's see. Oh, I didn't do the back here. So just getting these little bone color hands right there. This is my second color. I could go white on bone, and then I'd get my third color, but I feel like this blocking technique is a little too stark for me, so I'm going to tone it down with the wash as soon as I finish this up. All right. And then his face, right? We gotta get his face. So let's get some of this face in here. He's got a big, long mouth. Oh, he's got a tongue. There we go. I think he needs more highlight right here. Let's get more paint up here. Really color block that. Really get a coat of paint on there. There we go. Now, perhaps that's too bright. So we just have to wait for that to dry. And I'll go in with my wash, my brown wash, because ivory is a warm color. And then I could just wash in this bone color and look at the magic happen. It takes all of that bone and tones it down, blends it right in. And then when it's dry, I will go in and I will highlight certain areas. See that? Let's see. Come on. So now you got the definitions in the hands, and then we'll go in, we can highlight, get the darkness to the arms, and we'll see it again on the face. So a wash will tone down a lot of your highlights. Let's see, it might not be dry yet. Paint. Oh no, I guess it's dry. There we go. And so we just wait for that to dry. Okay. So that's how you can use the wash in different ways. Let's see, do I have... Do I have, let's see if I have. All right, I'll do this. All right, so we have this ghost here. While we're waiting for it to dry, I do have some purple areas in here that we painted. And let's say I want to get those a little bit darker, but I don't want to use a black wash on this. I want to control it, or I don't have a black wash. I have black paint. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to, I'm just going to take this guy, just dump this water out for a minute. Let me get my paintbrush here. I'm going to take this black right here. This is Citadel black. And I'm just going to kind of put a couple drops of black in there. And now I'm going to add some water. And you're trying to get that consistency of the wash. So what is the consistency you're looking for? Well, if you paint on your thumbnail, see how that's sort of like a glaze. I don't want that. I want that a little bit thinner. So we're going to go a little bit thinner in here. Now black might be okay because it's a dark color, but if you were doing something like a pink or a red or something, you might lose some of that color. All right, so let's see. Let's wipe that off. Let's see, is this a good? So it's a little dark still, but it could work. Let's get a little bit more water. You could also use lemon medium to thin this down. Yeah, so there you go. Taking the paint. It's a little darker, but I think this will work. Okay. And so if you don't have a wash, you can always thin down the paint. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to go into these folds with my brush with this paint. So I just load it up. And then I'm going to go into these little folds here. This is black. And I just want to do a controlled wash. You may have to do it a couple times to get the shade that you want. But you should start seeing a separation in these rags. So you want to go with a smaller brush. And get around these hooded areas. Maybe in here I want some shade. So hopefully it's starting to separate out. Let's see how this looks back here. Let me see if I can use a smaller brush. So we're just picking brushes to use. Use this one. See if this one does anything different. And this is considered glazing. So I know that's all a wash really is. You can sit here and you can do this for a while. This is all the glazing techniques. So I've actually taught you glazing twice now. We glazed when we did the dry brush. You know, remember we were trying to do him purple? Or if your base coat is too thin, it's considered a glaze. So maybe 3 times I taught you the glazing technique. And now this, we're painting in a shade color, and this is just black that I've thinned down to be a wash. And hopefully that kind of separates out. And then over here, after it's dry, you can do it again, and it gets it darker. So see, you're learning some advanced techniques just by learning basic techniques. I mean, these techniques, they're for beginner. I mean, everybody's got to start somewhere. And even though I call them beginner techniques, I mean, you can advance it to more advanced techniques. I just, I don't call it glazing, I call it shading. But you're thinning the paint down for a purpose. And you could thin a paint down to highlight if you want. So now you're starting to get more definition. You see, we highlighted the purple last week with blocking, and now we're adding that shade. Remember the 3-color system. Remember the cube. The cube has a light. That darker color is your shade color. That's one dimension. The gray is your color. So the purple in this case is my color. And then I want to highlight. And so I used a lighter purple to highlight. And so this is all we're doing. So I mean, I could have used a brown wash on this, but since it's a cool color, I just wanted to stay with a cool color. I'll get in these areas here. And I know that I talked quite a bit at the start of the lesson, but hardlining or edging is what you're going to get to see on this model, because I think it's a great model to show things with. That's where I want to go with as much as I can. Oops. That's what I really want to show you today. But now you can start to see all of that definition just with putting in that black wash. And I could have done the same thing by using the black wash and just painting right into those little creases. So the object of the game is to paint everything with 3 colors: a shade, its color, and something that highlights. And so on here, we have the black that's shading in that purple, and I could keep going as much as I want. Then we have the purple, and then up here we have the lighter purple. So that's our 3 colors. But I'm going to do a little bit more than just what you see here. I'm going to do the edge highlighting on this, but not right now, because I want to come back to, you guessed it, this guy. And so notice that that black has really kind of discolored, it darkened this area. And so, and see how I wasn't really good with my pooling? See over here, I took it all up, but I didn't take it up down here. So to fix that, we are going to take our gray that we used prior, which I think was this. And I'm just gonna kind of paint a little bit over those pools because they're dry. I can't slurp them up with the brush. So we're gonna just paint over them a little bit, leaving as much of the darkness as we can there. So that we just kind of painted over that a little bit, and then I need that brightest gray to do white. So I'm just doing a little bit of fixing. This is kind of like what you do. What we're going to do next week is how to fix things that we might have goofed, but now you're getting a sneak peek. So because I didn't do any of the white over here on this side of the model, I can go back to my original color and just kind of get this back to be sort of like a bright color. So I'm just going back to my color blocking. Whoops. And what's nice about doing the wet palette is it kind of keeps your thin a little bit more on the thin side, so things blend in a little bit more. There we go. Looks a little bit better. So now I have my gray and I have my shade color. That's two parts of the mission. So the next part of the mission is to get the white on there. Now, I could get the white on here, but I think what I want to do is I want to go back to that original gray for a second. Let me get to that original, back to that original gray. All right. So I just want to show you one thing. So you know how this was all white when we did it, and then we washed it with that black? If I go back to that original gray and just kind of like hit the high areas and leave kind of the shade where I wanted it, it'll give it the appearance that I'm painting white. So I'm just going back to the bright gray. May need to go just a little bit brighter. Let's see if I can go a little bit brighter, just show you. So I'm just going to kind of hit over here. Just anywhere where there was a high area of that gray. I just want to keep like the darkness in the shade itself. So what I want to do is I just want to hit the high spots with this light gray. This is still color blocking. I know that we're highlighting now. This is my third color for highlighting. But in order to see the next piece, I think I have to do this part of it. You don't always have to do this, but to get white, you kind of have to do a little bit more than intended. All right, so there's the gray. And so he's ready for some edge highlighting when we get there. So I see some flesh here. I'm going to do this because I want this guy to be a little bit on the paler side. Now, because I've already washed him in certain places, you have to make sure that you're controlled here. So take your time. But I'm just going to add some brown wash to this flesh piece right here as if I was painting it. Be nice and controlled. This gets a quick shade into that flesh color. And then just make sure we don't pull it. And we're going to do the same thing in his face. I'm trying not to get any on the white piece. Remember last week we said you always start with the inside pieces and work outside? So sometimes washes or shades take a little bit of a different approach. So I'm just trying to shade this guy very slowly, making sure nothing gets anywhere I don't want it. And then you have to watch for pooling. So there seems to be some pooling here. So let me dry this off. Whoops. Oh, he almost fell. And I just kind of scoop up my pools this way. You have to be quick to scoop up pools. All right. So again, before I do anything, I got to kind of wait for it to dry. But we're in a better place with this guy now. So one thing I want to show you is sometimes you can just paint the shade, the highlight, and the and the mid-tone colors. So let's say, I want to do, all right, let's say I want to do his hair and I want to do that blonde. Oh, no, I don't want to be famous. Can we ban him? Let's see. Nobody wants to be famous, right? I think we're all famous anyway. Let me see. Let me. I forgot how to ban. Oh, there you go. Boom. He's gone. See you later, buddy. Sorry. You're just like all the other pests in my house. Whoops. All right, so how do I get this off the screen now? I don't want you. Well, he's banned, but somehow that guy's on my screen. I don't want him to be on my screen. All right. Anyway, not going to derail the stream, but so I'm going to do his hair. I want to do it blonde. So the first thing I'm going to do is maybe I want to have a nice dark color. So we're going to start with a nice mahogany. And again, I'm not gonna wash it. I could, but I think I'm just gonna paint brown on his hair or her hair. It's hard to tell because they're wearing a breastplate. Could be a girl for all I know. As far as I know, girls can also shoot bows. So we'll just say archer. The archer's hair. Make sure I'm on screen. Okay. So there you go. So I'm thinking to myself, brown is my shade color. And what I'm going to do after that is go to a yellow. And so I'm going to edge highlight some yellow in there when I get the chance. Or I could dry brush. Who knows? All right. So let's put him aside. And let's come back to our dwarf now that he's dry. And look at that. His flesh is a little bit better So now if I wanted to, I could say, well, you know, maybe I did it too bright, so now I can fix it. And I fixed it by bringing it down, so maybe I don't want to go as bright with my flesh. So maybe I want to take my tan flesh we started with and actually mix in some lighter flesh to get almost a lighter tone, but not a stark lighter tone. So let me get the wet palette so you can see what I'm doing. So see, I've taken the dark flesh, added some of this tan flesh, and made a new flesh on my wet palette. And it should stay wet because that's what the wet palette should do. So now I can go in and I can use my lining brush and I can actually edge highlight these fingers. So say I can go like this. Now the trick to edge highlighting is it's always easier to come towards you than it is to go away from you. So when you edge highlight, try to bring, if you can, sometimes the model won't let you, try to come far away to towards you. So like I'm just kind of starting where his hand is and bringing it back towards me like this. Like this. And this is how edge highlighting works. Well, I'm not really edge highlighting here because I'm actually blocking in, but you can start to see a little bit more of the definition now, and he's not so bright. Remember when he was bright? We used that darker shade, that wash, to tone him down. But this is the kind of the same, this is a similar technique to edge highlighting, is that we're just kind of drawing these lines. We're not dry brushing. It's not as chaotic, right? So we just kind of come away and come at us. Oh, there you go. That's where we got him. So we cleaned up that little mistake there. And then I'll just kind of add a little highlight there. Add a little highlight to his thumb, to his hand, to his elbow. Go. All right. Let's see. We got here. Aha. Just do that. And that's how we do flesh. So I did a dark flesh, then I did a wash, but I also, remember, I messed him up on purpose to show you that you can salvage stuff with a wash just by toning it back down. So you can highlight before you wash, or you can wash before you highlight, which is what we're going to do. So there you go. That's his flesh there. So let's go back over here to this guy, and we can start to add in higher tones of flesh here. So let's say that we started with a flesh, we brought it down to make the darker shade. Now I want this medium shade that I just created. So let's say that this is what I really wanted. So I'm going to do this on the hand here so you can see it, because we're running out of time. So this is the medium shade. And so all I'm doing is painting on the medium shade from, But I don't want to paint all the model. I want to leave some of that darker tone in there. So we'll paint this muscle here. Right? So I'm just blocking right now. I'm just blocking the colors in. So there's my part of my highlight. Look, he's got some claws going on here. So again, I'm just using the tip of the brush, and it's almost like I'm edge highlighting, but I'm just trying to paint fingers. And I'm always coming towards myself. So I'll start out here and bring it towards myself. So I'll put the model this way so you can see it. Then I start over here and I come towards myself. That's edge highlighting. So, well, this isn't edge highlighting. This is just highlighting. This is layering in that highlight. I'll show you what edge highlighting is in a second. I'm just trying to get this guy, this arm here, so that you can see what I'm going to do. So remember, we started with this color and then we washed them. And now I'm going back to this color. I can do the same thing with the bone color, So I think this is what I used before. Oh yeah, it's right here. So for the bone, we started, we washed it, and now I'll just kind of paint over the high areas, much like we did last week. But you're starting to see you get a little bit more definition now because you have that shade in there. And then once we get the edge highlight on, it adds a whole new dimension. I mean, technically we have the highlight on now because this is much brighter than what we started with, because we toned down the other color. But for me, I much rather go brighter because it adds a little bit more dimension and pop to the model for the table. So I'm just adding a little bit of color to this high spot here. Okay, so I kind of am showing you edge highlighting in an indirect way, but you start here and you bring it towards you, bring it towards you, bring it towards you, bring it towards you. So there you go. So now it's getting, so it was like that. Now it's like that, and we'll do a little bit more. But if you take a look at his arm, you can see his arm's a little bit brighter, a little bit flatter. I'll get some of his face here for you. Little cheeks there, that. Okay. Let's see, we get close up of that. There you go. Late, but here. Nobody, you're perfectly on time. You are here when you meant to be here. You are always on time. Okay, so now that we did that, we washed them, we brought that color back just a little bit. So now I can go in with a highlight color. Do this really quick, and I'm going to do an edge highlight. Now when you edge highlight, you just find the edges and you apply the highlights. So like right here, 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 here. Right? And that's edge highlighting. So like the fingers are always edge highlighting, but you just kind of don't hit, you just kind of lightly touch it with this light color. But when you edge highlight, you just find the edges. So like right here on the tip of the nose is there's an edge. So I'll just hit that there, hit the top of his eyes. There's two little divots right here above the nose. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see. Come on, camera. I spent enough for you. You should be able to do it. There you go. So all I'm doing is just hitting the edges with my highlight. So probably like right down here and right up here. On his hand. Maybe a little highlight there, who knows. But that's all I do as far as the edge highlighting goes. So again, let me just show you. You're just picking the edge of the model and you're bringing it towards you. And if you want, you can use the side of the brush, the side of that tip, to help you follow along. Oh, come on. I'm not doing any. There we go. Hopefully you guys can see that. I don't know if it's working, but I may have to. There it is. So edge highlighting is nothing more than just finding the edge or the highest point and giving it some highlight to it. We'll try it on this guy. So here we wanted to get this guy with white, a white tunic. So I'm gonna just edge highlight white on him. Wow. Seriously. Oh wait, do I need to darken this? Let's see. It almost wants to do it. There we go. So that we're gonna get some white on there. Do I have white? No. And I'm gonna show you guys the consistency you want your edge paint. So this is too large of a brush for me to edge highlight. I know I was doing it on the flesh model, but I'm only using the tip of the brush. And it was a large enough model. All right, that one's down there. I was only using it was a large enough model. I mean, he's all skin, so I can use the large brush on the skin. But for something like this, you're gonna want to do, you're gonna want to use a lining brush or a small brush. And so let me show you. I just gotta get some white on the wet palette here. Okay. Now for this, I'm going to use a separate cup of water. This is just a tiny cup of water, but because my water is dirty, I don't want to use dirty water with my white. So I'm going to use this little tiny cup of water here to wash out my brush. All right, so here is my liner brush. Let's see, can I show this? There we go. That's my lining brush. That's what I'm going to use to do this. Now, when I do an edge paint, you don't want a wash. You want to be able to draw with the paint. So as long as you can keep the tip as a tip, you should be able to just touch it and get the paint off. So that looks like a good consistency. If it's too thick, then it's not going to come off. You know, you want to be able to touch your thumb as light as you can and still have paint. But you don't want, you want to be able to write your name, really. I want to be able to write a B. That's how you know it's a good edge paint. So if I can write the letter B, you know that you have the right consistency for an edge paint. So there's my little B. There's my little B. Come on. I know you can do it. You're a good camera. Come on, buddy. Come on. There it is. There's my B on my thumb. Yes, it does get compromised easy. So that's what we want. So I know I have a good consistency here. And so again, I'm only using a third of the brush. I'm not using, let me get on the center. I'm not using the whole brush. I'm using a third. And I'm just going to go in and I'm going to touch the pieces that I want to highlight with this white. So you're just using the tip to get to the highlight, the edges, the extreme edges. And this is how you can control where your highlights go. So maybe my highlights go there. I see a little ridge here. See a little ridge here. There's an edge here. Now, I don't have to use the actual tip. I'm using the side of the tip. So I can just use the side of this tip to get in there. Let me show you a little bit on the bottom. So I don't know if this is going to show up. My hands might compromise the focus. Let's see, that compromised the focus. So I'm just controlling where I want my white to go. This is the edge highlighting portion. And you should be able just to draw lines on the high spots of the model. And that's edge highlighting. So I could show you better on, oh, I got some other stuff I can show you with the white. But this one's more, these are pretty fat. These are pretty fat highlights on this model. But if I wanted to, I could do this edge down here. I can show you this way. I can use the side of the brush and come at me. So I'm using the tip and I can get a little edge on the bottom like so. Now will you focus if I have nothing else in view? Yeah, I might have to take manual focus off. I thought, like, I can get up close. This is how close I can get up. So I like that feature, but I'm going to have to see if I can get the, let me see if it'll work this way. See, I'm off camera. Let me try it once more on camera. Make sure I'm on camera. Come on, buddy. I paid money for you. Does that work? No, it's more or less. It's more or less. I'll have to figure out the zoom and the. The other camera, I take manual focus off, but the whole point of keeping autofocus on is that if I get really up close, like on his ear, it should focus on his ear. That's what I really like. If I take manual focus off, then it doesn't do that. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the hair. I know we're almost out of time. These classes. So if I do the yellow with the hair, again, I want to make sure that I have the right consistency. So you want to just make sure that you can actually draw a B. Might be a little too thin. But there's my B again. Come on. So that might be a little too thin. But yellow is a thin paint anyway. All right. So what I'm going to do, again, this might be a little bit more paint than, yeah, that's too much paint. I don't want to do that. I don't want to teach you guys wrong habits. But I gotta get enough on the liner brush. So there you go. That's how much yellow is on there. And again, with the hair, I just find a hair and I just very lightly touch. Let's see if I can do this in view. See if my angle is going to allow me to do this. So right now I'm just painting individual hairs on this model. Certainly doesn't like what I'm doing with this yellow paint. So it's just this light controlled movement right towards me. And I'm just following wherever that hair goes. Does that make sense to everybody? That's how you edge highlight. You just take a nice highlight color and you find the edge and you paint it. So I think there's a little hair right there. Then it gets a little messy in here because of the molding. So I think I just have to kind of pretend to know where the hair is going to go. So that is the brown and then the yellow. And then I can go farther by adding a little bit of white to my yellow. And I can edge highlight again. This time maybe I don't want to do all of the yellow. Come on. This might be a little too thin. No, this is too thin. Somehow I got too thin of a paint. So I may have to wait. But eventually I'll get in there and I'll do some lighter yellow. I just have to get the right consistency of the paint. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily want to paint the edge highlight on, because now it's just kind of washing in where that brown is. So we'll wait on that. I mean, you can do a lot with the tip of the brush. As long as you have a strong enough tip, you can do edge highlighting. Let's go back to our ghost here, and let's try to do some edge highlighting on him. So I'm going to do some edge highlighting by doing gray down here. And you do that by taking some of your gray. See? That's as much gray as I got on the brush. You don't use the whole brush. And then you just go towards you, right on the edge. And you could control the amount of highlight and where the highlight goes with edge highlighting. So I'll do it again. So there you go. That's edge highlighting, and I can do one. I'll do one more here. There's an edge right here. And if I wanted to, I could do a little bit more of a lighter gray in this dark area here. But let's go to the purple and see how the purple comes out. So what do I want for the purple? Let's try this color. And we'll take some of this white color and really get this nice and saturated. Yeah, that's good. All right. Gotta tell you, I was tingling with anticipation, waiting for you to come back and say you had an Inquisitor 54. It's got to be in New York. I've looked in all of my boxes here, and is that the one that has the dog? Is that the woman with the dog? Or is he the one that has like all the bile stuff? Or is he the ranger? I don't know. I had the twins. I had the twin ladies. This doesn't have a point anymore. So let's try this big one I was using before. The Death Watch Captain. I'll have to look them up and see if I actually had them. I know. I was hoping that I could tell you that I had them too, but I don't. So let's see. Is this going to be a good one? Yeah. So I can actually draw a bee with this. Good. All right. So there seems to be an edge right here, so I will do this edge right here. A very light controlled touch with the tip. Ah. Maybe if I do it here. There you go. So you just want to come back towards you. And maybe I'm just not holding the model where I can do that. This takes time. it takes patience, but once you learn control of your hard edge, your hard highlighting, your edge highlighting, whatever you want to call it, you can get some really cool looking effects with it, such as coming around this hood. And that separates his face from the hood. I can come down here. Oops. I mean, this is probably the hardest skill to master, is this edging, because you want to get it nice and clean. As you could tell, I'm not really being very clean with it. And then if you're not clean with it, then you have to go back and you have to sort of fix it up. But you can see how it really gives you definition on this model. You'll see it down here when I come down here with it. I mean, this is a metal mini too, so it's got some really rough edges. You're not going to have these rough edges with plastic. Oops. Yeah, we'll just do this. See, I could fix it just by doing that. And then a little bit of hard line over here. A little bit of hard line over here. My tip on this brush is not that great, so I'll use the side of the brush to get my edge highlight. If you use the side of the brush, it works a little bit better. So there you go. That's where he's looking now. But look at the definitions, like I said to you before. We did the shades with the black wash, and then we did the highlights here. I just added a little bit of white. I can go and block if I want up here. Say, oh, maybe I want this to be a little bit lighter. Maybe I want this to be a little bit lighter. So now he's brighter on the top. So here's where he was. That's what he was. And now look where we got him. And then if this is on the table, people will be like, oh, wow, that looks pretty cool. That's popping right there. Woo. So I can do the same thing with the ivory. So there's an edge right here that I can highlight. And there's an edge right here I can highlight. And an edge right here. And right here. And as long as you're nice and controlled, as long as you're nice and controlled, there you go. You can get a good highlight on your model just by edge highlighting it. Or you can block highlight if that's what you prefer to do. So see, I could block highlight his bony hands here, just adding highlights there. So it's really how you want to highlight. So you know how to layer highlight, you know how to edge highlight now. I'll edge highlight right here and on his nose and his lips, his cheeks, his chin. Well, that didn't really. There you go. That's what I wanted. So if I highlight on his eyebrows, his cheeks, his chin, and then obviously we have to do a little bit more on his face to, you know, get the eyes to glow. But that's the edge highlighting effects going on. So you can really control your highlighting with just some edge highlights. Okay. All right. And so this guy here, I can use this tip of the brush again. And I can give, since we, so on this flesh, we did tan flesh and then we washed it. So now I can go back and highlight it with this edge highlighting technique. Get those fingers to pop. Oops. Maybe I shouldn't have used this big brush. Oh, he's got a thumb, doesn't he? That thumb. And we'll get these fingers here. Just to give you guys a picture of him from the front. So there we go. And if you make a mistake, we can either rewash the flesh like we did on the dwarf, or we can go back with our darker flesh and make some edits. Maybe we didn't want to do dark flesh somewhere. But the point of this is that you have to be controlled. You have to be slow when you're dealing with littler areas. Oh, I didn't even show you guys. I meant to show you guys the highlight. So I can go back and I can highlight this middle piece here with edge highlighting it. So I don't know if that's going to show up, but so you can edge highlight that piece right there. And then you can also, now that I've washed this metal piece, I can find the little squares here and very controlled, I can edge highlight. That might be a little, it's going to take practice, but you can do it. You just hit the little squares and it will, if you hit them with a lighter silver, it makes the shade just a little bit blacker, and then the shade looks a little bit darker. I'm not going to sit here and do all of them, but hopefully you can see a difference. Come on. Hopefully you can see a difference in the brightness. So I'll see if I can show you here. It's hard for me to see actually right now. I don't know if I did it any justice, but there you go. You can do all kinds of little things with edge highlighting. And if you think that this white might be a little too, I think this white might be a little too gray for my taste. I should have used this gray. Or I should have used this white to do my gray. I think I have to find a brighter white. I probably have to use Monuments white, just because I think they have a true white. But there you go. That's washing and that's highlighting. And I know we're over time, but I want to get to any questions. Does anybody have any questions on how to edge highlight, how to wash a mini, how to glaze a shade? Because what I want to do is I want to actually go through and I want to show you something with this guy, which I think is really cool that you can do with washes as opposed to washes or glazing, but I'm going to call them washes for now. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. I know we're over time and you probably have other things to do, but if not, I'm just going to get into, oof, you don't have to check, but now I send you a pic of him in your DMs later. Cool. I'm going to take this time to remind everybody they do have a Discord page, !Discord. Please join that, and any models that you want to show off, please do so in the works in progress area. If you want me to look at any models and send you personal feedback, not public feedback, you can always put your dry brushing pictures in the dry brushing class. You can always put your base coloring or color blocking in the base coloring page or channel, and then you can put any shading and models that you've been working on in this one. Next week, like I said, I want to get into a little bit more detailing as far as doing faces and doing eyes and doing just little things that you can do to make your models unique. I'll teach you how to fix things that you might have made a mistake on, and I will also show you how to do gemstones, different style of gemstones. And then after all that, that's your 4 weeks, and you'll know pretty much all of the things you need to know. And I'll keep putting tips and tricks into the Discord page. You can always go there and check out, watch some videos. Talon has given me amazing videos that I've posted in there. So just like you, I always learn things, and I go to different people's channels and I learn things, so you can as well. All right. So first things first, I need to get some white onto this model. I think I'm going to base him white to really show this off. So as I'm priming him white, or not priming him, basing him white, like I said, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. If not, you can watch me paint this model white. You can continue painting your own models if that's what you're doing. You can join my Discord, or again, you can actually go to the Trevor Project, !Trevor Project. It will give you a list of all of the streamers that are involved in raising money for the Trevor Project, for the LGBTA plus community. There's like about 50 or 60 streamers that have raised probably close to $6,000, I think, $6,000 for the project. And so I have 2 links. One will take you to the page where you can find your favorite streamer and donate money to their stream. It also gives you a schedule of when they are on and when they're accepting donations. Or I have hijacked Emracina's link to her donations page. Sorry, Emracina. She's in here, so now she knows that you can donate. If you want to donate directly, you can donate in that link to Emracina's fundraising page. It is a Tiltify site, so I know PayPal has been kind of being angry at that site, so you may have to wait until Emracina is streaming in order to donate to her channel. But I meant to tell you, Emerson, I stole your link, and I only stole it by accident because I thought it was just a generic link until I found out it had your name in it. So I'm helping you out. But yeah, so there's about 50 or 60 artists that are painting the different flags of the LGBTA community, and some are painting all of them. Some are doing dioramas. So some are selling on eBay to raise money. So if you would like to donate to that organization, there are multiple ways that you can do. And if you're not a miniature painter, it doesn't matter. You can draw, you can do 3D art or digital art, you can, anything that you craft, you can join in the fun. And I will show you in just a second, as soon as I'm done painting this guy, I will show you in a second what I have been working on. I can't post any pictures until it's done. It's just but all right. So this guy is now painted white, and I only did that because I really want to show this off. So let's let him dry for a second. Looks like we're gonna go a little bit over time, like maybe another 15 minutes. But here's what I'm doing for the Trevor project. So this is this flag has pink, blue, or maybe it's red and blue, I don't remember, and purple. So I'm very bad at knowing all of the flags for the community. So I took a flag from somebody's stream. I just did it. So there you go. That's what I'm painting up. It's just a Howling Banshee. And I will post pictures when it's done. I don't have a socials command. I think all my socials are actually at the bottom of the page. So my Instagram is there. The Discord is there. I think I have a Discord command, though. I don't have a socials command. So that one is ! Trevor project. And you can always see a list of my commands by doing ! command list. That's all one word, command list. That tells you all the commands that you can do on the channel. Now let's see if I remember how to do this. Oh yeah, okay. So we need this first. Okay, so as promised, I am. That is my Scooby command. Welcome. All right. So I'm going to show you how to do some zombie flesh with just washes. And so the washes I'm going to use in this particular case is going to be this brown wash, Agrit's Earthshade. And then there's a green wash. I'm going to show off all the washes I have. So this one's Ethonian Camo shade. So this is more of like a dirty green wash. We're gonna go again with some Carabao Crimson. This is a red wash. Gonna work with a little purple wash. Oh boy, come on, don't do that. There you go. Some violet. That's a purple wash. And do a little bit of Reichland flesh. Oh, actually, I think I showed you the wrong one. This is the brown wash. Reichland flesh shade. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. How close can I get? There you go. Have fun muting that one, Twitch. All right. So let's see. Still a little wet. Kind of. All right. So I'm going to save all these models. I know we haven't really done any. Oh, I can do this. I'll edge highlight some white on this little bone. This is actually monument white now. So I'll just edge highlight. So again, all I'm doing is going right towards me. I don't need to edge highlight there. That's at the bottom. I'll edge highlight right here. Away from me, towards me. Away from me, towards me. Oh, and by the way, when you're edge highlighting, the last thing you want to do is go back and forth. So you don't want to go like this to edge highlight. That's more of a dry brushing move. You want to go as controlled in one motion as you can. That one's a little fat. So get into a place where you can actually do one motion. I'll show you once more. So right here, actually, one motion away towards me. And if it falls off or the paint goes away, do not try to reapply. Just do it once. Because if it doesn't go on, it wasn't meant to be. That's how I look at it. And so you have something that looks like this. So if I want to continue on, I'll hold it the other way. And the reason why you see me go back and forth is because I'm making sure I have it on the model. I'm not really going back and forth on the miniature. As soon as I start to see color, I just go as best I can. There you go. And so that's edge highlighting. And then I see there's a piece right here. So maybe I just want to get this. All right. How about now? You dry now? All right. He looks pretty dry. All right. Ready? As promised. We're going to start off with Reichland Flesh Shade, the brown wash. Just going to take a big brush. Here's my big brush. Dip it in. And we're just going to go all over the model with this. So the brown wash, and then you got to wait for it to dry. So drying is going to be the hard thing. And I'll actually put this video up on the in the channel, but I wanted to show it to you first. It's just using washes, or you can thin out these colors. You can thin out a green, you can thin out a brown to do this. Okay, so there's where he's at right now. So now we have to let him dry. And the next thing that we're going to do once he's dry is we're going to use the green. We're going to do 2 coats of the green to get sort of that rottenness in there. So, and I think we have to thin this out with a 1-to-1 of lemon medium. So I won't thin it out though. But that's the trick, is that green. It's the green and the brown that's going to bring the flesh color, and then we'll highlight it with a very pale flesh. But remember, we can get rid of the pooling from the wash just by drying off our brush, getting the moisture off, and then touching the pools. So like, it looks like there's a pooling going on right here by his belt. Let's see if I can get it close enough. There's pooling going on by its belt, so I'll just go, there you go. And it's gone. And then maybe by his foot down here. So we'll just touch those. Now it's gone. And so you just kind of spot check wherever it's pooling and you don't want it to pool. Just kind of, and you rinse off the brush and you dry it off again. And it's okay if we miss spots like up here. It just meant that that wasn't where the wash was going to go, and it'll add to the green flesh. Kind of like the hand like that. Plus I can go a little bit later today since I'm not streaming tomorrow. Do I still have people with me? People leave? What else can I do? What else can I show you guys? About wood. I can, well, yeah, I said that. There's no getting around that. All right, we'll get some of this nice leathery color here. And I will block in. While we're waiting for that to dry, I'll block in this. So. So I have this nice dark brown here. And then I'm just putting in this leathery color. And we'll do the same on the other side. So we'll do right here. Oops. I went up too much. So I want to do right to there. So I have this little darkness. So this dark brown I kind of want in this fold right here. And I'm also keeping the darkness in the back. So if I want to edge highlight in the back, I can just use the side of this tip and go up the edge. And the same on the other side. So like that. Oops. So like that. So see how that kind of fades into the dark. And I have the back there. And so what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to that leathery color to create a little highlight shade. So that's what I'm going to do here. And I won't go all the way down. Just enough to highlight the bow. And then maybe the tips I'll do. So this is dark brown, a leather color, and then the yellow color. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash it, and then I can edge highlight it afterward. So I'll just wash it with this brown. Where did I put my brown? I could wash it with a black, but so this just kind of softens up all of those edges that I just put into this wood bow. And then if you look, kind of gives a little natural shade to it. And then we'll work on highlighting that later. Come on. For being a very expensive camera, you're not doing a very good job. There you go. So you can start seeing some of that shading that's taking place for the wood bow. Okay. How are we doing here, my friend? Okay. It looks nice and dry. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little of this camo shade. This is a dirty green camo shade. And just like with all washes, make sure you watch for the pooling to happen. Make sure you take out the pooling. But this will give it that rotting sort of coloring. So if you have a dirty green or a zombie green that you can water down, and I might need to get another coat. And so I'm just washing this right now. I can go back in with my base colors after it's all nice and dry. But I'm only doing this because there's been some people asking me about zombie flesh. So I went and I kind of looked to see if I could find anything. And this is what I found. And I thought it was a cool way of actually doing it on stream. So, because we're talking all about shades and washes. So that's what we're doing. So I'm just taking some of these pools and I'm just going back over certain areas. And we'll have to wait for this guy to dry. How we doing on time? So, any questions? That's why we're here. We're here for a paint along. I know this is going a little bit over. I mean, I told you we had a lot of information, and this is kind of like a bonus guy, but I did want to try to get him sort of in the works. Hopefully people are learning stuff. Hopefully I haven't totally demolished your painting habits or your desire to paint miniatures. Again, these are all just basic techniques, and they don't have to be used. You don't have to do any of these things. You know, you can totally stick with, maybe you just want to glaze, or maybe you just want to use inks, or you just want to stay with the base colors. It's just, this is the color of 3. Anything that I put on the model, I'm always thinking, what's my shade, what's my color, and what's my highlight? And that's kind of where I'm going with this. Everything that I do has to have a shade, a color, and a highlight. And sometimes you just can't get them all on there because the area is too small, and that's fine. Just do the shade and do the highlight. But that's kind of where models are. They're a 3-dimensional piece that we want to kind of force some of the highlights and some of the shading. And then you can really get advanced by just forcing where those are when you get into OSL, which is object source lighting. Let me see if I can actually get some blonde hair on him. I'm just trying to find things to kind of do right now. I probably should just call it a night, but kind of want to give you guys the best that I can do basic wise. So let's see. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's the color I want right there. All right. So let's see if I can keep this on camera. Just focus for once. There we go. I don't want to do too much. I want to keep some of the yellow there. But again, it's just basic stuff that as you practice, and if you think you did too much and you lost some of that yellow, you just go back to the yellow and you can just add it back in. I want to do it there, want to do it there, there. And we still have that black, or excuse me, we still have that brown underneath. So, and then with this, now that we washed it, we'll take some of that highlight color we did on the bow, and I'm going to try to stay on camera for this. We're just going to edge highlight towards myself. I have to hold the mini a little bit stronger. There you go. That's the hard line edge. Show you on this side. Just using the side of the brush. Nice controlled movement. Oops. So we did there. And then I can do a hard edge right here. Right at the bottom of this metal piece. And I can also do an edge right up here. Let's see. Everything's towards me. That's the trick to this. Oops. So when you look at it straight on, we got some highlights going on for the wood bow. Get the edge highlight right there. Get the edge highlight right there. And then you have that shade right in the back where there's nothing coming in. And so we can just personalize this. Next week, I'll show you how you can do some wood grain. We have a leather pack here that we can do. But let's go back to our zombie. So he's looking still wet, but we're going to get another coat of that green camo shade on. And hopefully that will darken the green up so you can see the zombie tones. So we haven't done anything but just wash, shade, glaze, whatever you want to say this is. This is just a dirty old green wash. Just to show where the flesh is kind of rotting. Get rid of some of the pooling. And then then you wait for him and he'll get greener. And then we add in some red. We add some red wash in for anywhere where there might be wounds. And then you can go ahead and start base coloring and all stuff. So I'm going to put that video up on the Discord that shows all about the shading and the washing. And since nobody has any other stuff for me, I think I might call this a done stream. So just to give you a little look at what stuff we did today with edge highlighting and shading. I'm not gonna be able to hold that. So we got this guy. We did some work on his tunic. We got some work done on his metal, his wooden bow, his blonde hair. We got this guy, which we did some edge highlighting on his arm and his face and his little club, which is a bone of something. Our ghost, we did some edge highlighting right there on the hands. I mean, obviously none of these are done, but we got a little edge highlighting done on his tunic. Let's see if I can get rid of some of this stuff in his way. So we got some of the edge highlights. Remember, it looked like this before we started. Now it looks like this. So he's coming out pretty well. Now we got the arms done on this guy. Remember, we did the tan flesh. We went lighter, and then we fixed it with a wash. And then we came back with a little subtler flesh tone. And then here's how this guy's looking. So he's starting to get pretty green. Get rid of some of this pooling in there. Need that. And then basically what you do is you go back and you highlight the abs, and you give him anywhere where there's like some wounds. If he has any cuts or whatever, you put the red on him. Then you could do the tunics. You can do the eyes, which we'll do eyes next week. But that's one way of doing zombie flesh. You just have it this old, dirty, and then once you start highlighting, I don't think I have my palette flesh here. Do I have palette flesh here? I don't. I might be able to make palette flesh though. Let's see. So it's just a very light flesh. But I can go in here and I can kind of highlight. No, can't. It's too wet still. Oh well. Let's see. Oops. I should be doing this with my little glasses. I'm just trying to hit the high edges. Just to show you that you can highlight and eventually it'll sort of look like a zombie. Not yet. I'll have to go back and touch that up. But anyway, that's what happens is I try to rework models. But hopefully you guys learned stuff. You learned about the 3-color system. You learned about value theory. So let me trade out screens here really fast. All right. So let me just take these off. So that's my little haircut. So thank you so much for joining in today. I hope you learned stuff. We covered quite a bit of information today, and I left some tips in the Discord page under 103 shading and highlighting, edge highlighting. Hopefully you get to see how controlled edge highlighting can be. You can really do a lot with that. And as you're seeing stuff being done on other channels and it looks, they're doing the hard lining or the edge highlighting or edging, however you want to say it, you kind of understand what it is. And make sure the consistency of your paint, that you're using a good pointed liner to do your edge highlighting. And you should be able to draw a small B on your thumb with it. If the B is kind of moving all over the place, if it fills in, then it's too thin. And if the paint is just kind of too thick, like it's blobby, then it's too thick. So you want to do it like it was a felt tip pen. That's how you edge. And then I showed you shading by glazing dark colors if you don't have a wash. A wash just speeds up the process. Now, one thing that I haven't shown you, there is a Citadel paint out there called contrast paint. It's not a wash and it's not a glaze. So if you're thinking you want to use contrast paint, then send me a DM on Discord, and maybe we can set something up to show you what contrast paints can do and cannot do. So I don't want you messing around with your models thinking contrast paint is like a wash, because it's kind of not. It is and it isn't. It's hard to explain what contrast paints are. Watch some YouTube videos or watch some other people use contrast paints before you start. But stick with the glazing as far as shading goes by thinning out your paints, or go get some washes. Black and brown is the good one. And the other thing I wanted to do today, and I think I'll probably do it next week, I'm going to tell you 3 sets of paints. So if you're looking to get a set of paint, I'll give you 3 sets of 10 paints that you can get for yourself so you could do everything. Hey, Full Shot, what's going on? We're just finishing up our little painting class. We went a little over time today because I had a lot of information to give, and next week I want to do next week we're going to get into fixing or touching up paint jobs and doing some detailing stuff to make your model look a little bit more unique. And I'll show you how to do faces, I'll show you how to do eyes, I'll show you how to do gemstones, and some other little things that you might, some other basic things that will give you a unique looking model. So it went really well. I think it went very well. I'm a very slow painter, and so I try to cram so much stuff into a 2-hour thing, and it didn't happen today. So we're going a little overboard. But anyway, yeah, I'll just show you really quick. We were working on some edge highlighting with this guy and some shading. So we did some of the bone up here. I got a new camera, but it doesn't seem to want to work. There we go. So there we go. It's almost there. It's almost there. I think this is the level it needs to be. So we did some edge highlighting there and some shading. We did the same thing on this guy. We did some of his tunic. We did some of his metal here. We did his little wooden thing, and then we did this ghost. So we edge highlighted him. I can't see it. There we go. And then we started doing some zombie with just flesh washing, and I messed up his face a little bit. I thought I could highlight it, but I wasn't doing a good enough job. I tried to make some light flesh, and it didn't work. So I'm gonna post the video for the zombie flesh for you guys to watch. But anyway, that's how it went. I think it went. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think it went pretty well. Obviously, I'm a slow painter, and I could see all kinds of things that I need to touch up on this model, but it's not really about the model. It's more about the technique works. So practice your technique works. So far, you don't need to see that. Let me just get that. So far, first class, all dry brushing. It's a highlighting technique. You can dry brush your models as much as you want to. We learned the edge highlighting. It's another highlighting technique. It's a little bit more controlled. Last week, we learned about base coloring or color blocking, however you want to say it, and layering. So you can do a dark color, which we did on the bow. Then we do a highlight color or mid-tone, and then we work our way up to a highlight. It's a valid way. You never have to touch a wash at all. You never have to touch a glaze at all. Just your dark color, your highlight color, and your mid color. In the Discord page, I did put a couple recipes if you want to do the layering technique and you don't want to deal with the washes and the glazes. But and then I showed you how to shade by glazing a paint or by washing in a paint or washing in a wash or a shade. And then that's really it. Warm colors get the brown, or cool colors get the black, or you may just want the darker version of the wash. They make a blue wash, they make a red wash, they make an orange wash, which is technically a yellow wash. Browns, blacks, purples, greens. So you can get the color wash. It's just the darker version of the color. But anyway, this is, I think, where I'm going to leave it. Unless anybody has any last minute questions, remember that these classes, we don't raid into anybody and nobody raids into us. So you guys are more than welcome to go find your favorite streamers at this point and, spread out. But I hope that I've given you enough detail and enough techniques that you feel comfortable painting your models. And I look forward to seeing what you can do with it. Please use the Discord. Put any pictures in there, whether it goes into the classrooms or it goes into the works in progress. I'd love to see it. And DM me if you DM me if you ever want me to if you want me to critique or give you advice on how you can touch up models that you start with. Again, these beginning classes, that's all. We're just here to help. Yeah, and then come back next week. Once again, not streaming tomorrow night. I'll be back next Friday to do all the giveaways and stuff. You just have to be in the channel to get them. I'll do them throughout the night. And then next week, we'll finalize everything and we'll graduate you guys to be miniature painters, if that's what you're doing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you and have a great night. And remember, think out of the box. And like next week, we can always fix it. Good night.